The snow was supposed to be white that night, but under the streetlight it looked red. Jolene froze where she stood, her grocery bag slipping from her fingers. Apples rolled down the pavement, bouncing off the curb, leaving faint trails across the fresh snow. The man who had just fallen in front of her was bleeding, badly. His black coat was soaked, his hand pressed weakly against his stomach. And even though his face was pale, his eyes burned with something she had never seen before: danger. The night was silent except for the soft hum of Christmas carols playing from the cafe nearby. Seoul's streets were decorated with golden lights, couples laughing and taking photos. Yet here, in this narrow alley behind her apartment, death seemed to breathe against Jolene's neck. "Help?" the man whispered, his voice deep but fading. Jolene's first instinct was to run. Everything about him screamed trouble. The gun tattoo on his neck, the expensive wristwatch, the faint scent of blood and cologne. But then he coughed, blood splattering against the snow, and something inside her refused to walk away. She knelt beside him, trembling. "Oh my God, stay still. I'll call an ambulance." His hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. His grip was weak but desperate. "No hospital." Jolene blinked. "What do you mean no hospital? You're bleeding." He shook his head, eyes wild. "They'll finish it there. Just help me, please." Her heart pounded. Every logical part of her said, "Leave him." She was a foreigner in Korea. One wrong move could destroy her life. But his face, there was something broken in it, something human beneath all that blood and power. So she dragged him inside. Her apartment was small, just a studio near the old train station. She laid him on the floor, breathing heavily, her hands shaking as she grabbed her first aid kit. The metallic smell of blood filled the air. "Who shot you?" she whispered. He didn't answer. His eyes followed her as she tore his shirt open, revealing a deep wound on his side. A bullet graze, not too deep but dangerous. She cleaned it with trembling fingers, ignoring his low growl of pain. "You should have run," he muttered in a raspy voice. "And let you die on my doorstep?" She shot back. His lips curved, almost into a smile. "You're not Korean." "Obviously." He chuckled weakly, the sound dark and soft. "Brave woman." Jolene frowned. "Don't talk. You're losing blood." But he kept watching her, his gaze unreadable. When she was done, she covered him with her blanket and sat by the window, heart still racing. Outside, the snow kept falling. The city lights blurred through the frosted glass. She couldn't sleep, not with a stranger, a wounded stranger in her room. By morning, she woke up to the smell of black coffee. The man was sitting on her couch, shirtless, her blanket draped over his shoulders. He looked better, calmer, but those eyes still carried danger. "You didn't die," she muttered, rubbing her eyes. He smirked. "You sound disappointed." "I'm not," she said quickly. "But you owe me an explanation." He sipped the coffee, saying nothing. Then, after a long silence, "What's your name?" "Jolene." "Jolene?" he repeated slowly, as if testing how it tasted in his mouth. "I'm Jean Woo." Something about the name tugged at her memory. She had heard it before, whispered on the news, murmured by her Korean co-workers at the restaurant. Jean Woo, the man who ruled half of Seoul's underworld. Her stomach dropped. "Wait," she whispered. "You're that Jean Woo?" He looked up, his eyes glinting like cold steel. "If I told you yes, would you still have saved me?" Jolene's throat went dry. "I don't know." "Then it's good you didn't know," he said simply, standing up and pulling on his coat. He walked toward the door, his steps steady despite the wound. But before leaving, he turned back and said in a low voice, "You saved the wrong man, Jolene." Then he was gone. Jolene stood frozen. Her hands were shaking again. The wrong man? What did he mean? That question stayed with her the whole day. At work, while serving customers in the cafe, she kept replaying his words. Who was he really? Why did he collapse near her home? That night, when she returned to her apartment, she found a single red rose on her door and a note. "Stay inside. They're coming for you." Her stomach tightened. She looked around the hallway, but it was empty. A chill ran down her spine. Who was coming? The answer came before she could lock the door. Engines roared outside. Dozens of black cars pulled up along the street. Jolene peeked through the window, and her blood froze. Men in leather coats, holding guns, stepping out one after another. They weren't cops. They weren't his friends. Someone banged on her door. Once, twice, then a thunderous kick that shook the walls. "Open up, girl!" A voice barked in Korean. "You're hiding him." Jolene stumbled backward, heart pounding. What's happening? Another kick. The door cracked. Then, in one breathless moment, everything went silent, until a calm, familiar voice echoed from outside. "If you touch her," Jin-woo said, "you die." Jolene's breath caught. She pressed her ear to the door. Through the gap, she saw him. Standing in the snow, dressed in black, his wound bandaged, a gun in hand. Behind him, a dozen men in suits, his guards. The rivals had come for him, but they'd found her instead. The entire street fell into chaos. Shouts, gunfire, breaking glass. Jolene dropped to the floor, covering her ears, whispering, "God, what did I get myself into?" When it finally stopped, Jin-woo kicked the door open and stepped in, face cold, voice calm. "You're coming with me," he said. "Where?" "Somewhere safe." "I don't even know you," she snapped. He stared at her, unfazed. "You saved my life, Jolene. Now it's my turn to save yours." She hesitated, fear and anger colliding in her chest. "I didn't ask for this." "You didn't have to." He smirked faintly, tilting his head. "Fate already did." And just like that, before she could protest, he grabbed her hand and pulled her into the snowstorm where blood still melted the ice. The car sped through Seoul's empty streets, slicing through the cold December night. Jolene sat in the back seat, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, her breath trembling as the city lights flashed across her face. She hadn't said a word since Jin-woo dragged her out of her apartment. The same apartment that now had bullet holes in the walls and blood on the snow outside. Her hands still shook. She could still hear the gunfire ringing in her ears. And sitting next to her, calm as winter itself, was the man responsible for all of it. Jin-woo. He didn't look at her, just stared ahead with that same unreadable face. His jawline sharp, his dark hair falling slightly over his eyes. Even injured, he carried himself like someone untouchable, the kind of man the world either feared or obeyed. Jolene wanted to scream, but something about his silence kept her quiet. When the car finally stopped, she looked up and froze. They were in front of a glass skyscraper overlooking the Han River. The guards standing outside bowed as Jin-woo stepped out. Their presence was heavy, disciplined, dangerous, and loyal. Where are we?" Jolene asked, her voice low but sharp. He didn't answer immediately. He just opened the car door for her and said, "Somewhere the snow won't reach you." "What does that even mean?" she snapped, refusing to move. "You can't just drag me here like some hostage." Jinwoo's eyes flicked to hers, cold, focused. "If I didn't, you'd be dead by now." She flinched. "Those men outside your door?" he continued, voice calm. "They were from Baekhyun's syndicate, my rivals. When they realized I was alive, they came for the only person connected to me last night. You. Why would they come for me?" she demanded. "I don't even know you." He stepped closer. "Because you saved me. And in this world, bestie," he smirked faintly, "that makes you a target." Jolene's heart raced faster. He said it so casually, like being hunted was just another part of life. She glared at him. "I don't want to be part of your world." He looked away, running a hand through his hair. "You already are." For a moment, they just stood there, two strangers bound by one reckless act of kindness. Then, without another word, Jin-woo motioned for her to follow him inside. The elevator ride felt endless, the silence between them thick enough to cut through. When the doors finally opened, Jolene's jaw dropped. His penthouse looked like something out of a dream. Black marble floors, golden lighting, floor-to-ceiling windows showing the sleeping city below. Every corner smelled of power and secrets. "You live here?" she asked quietly. He nodded. Sometimes. I have safe houses everywhere. Comes with the job." Jolene raised a brow. "You say that like you work in real estate." That made him chuckle softly, the first real laugh she'd heard from him. "You're bold. I'll give you that. I just saved your life," she muttered. "I think that gives me the right to talk." He smiled. Not the kind that showed warmth, but the kind that revealed a hint of admiration. "Maybe you're not as scared as you should be." "I am," she said honestly. "But fear doesn't fix anything. So I talk instead." That answer seemed to intrigue him. He looked at her a little longer than necessary, then walked toward the minibar. "You drink." "Only when I'm celebrating surviving gang wars," she replied dryly. He turned his head slowly, amusement flickering in his eyes. "Then tonight's a celebration." He poured 2 glasses of whiskey and handed one to her. Jolene hesitated, then took it, her fingers brushing his for just a second. His hand was warm, hers trembling. They clinked glasses silently. She took a sip, her throat burning. "So what now? You keep me locked here until your rivals stop caring." He swirled his drink slowly. "They'll never stop caring, Jolene. But I can keep you alive." Her eyes narrowed. "And what if I don't want your help?" He leaned against the counter, his voice lowering. "Then I'll consider saving your life a waste." Her mouth opened in disbelief. "Excuse me? I don't waste things," he continued unfazed. "Not time, not loyalty, not people." Jolene stared at him, frustration bubbling under her fear. "You think you own everything you touch, don't you?" He tilted his head. "Do I?" "Yes," she snapped. "You walk into people's lives, bring chaos, and then act like they should be grateful." He set his glass down and walked toward her, slow and steady. She refused to back away, even when he stopped just inches from her face. "You talk too much for someone who almost died tonight," he said softly. "And you're too arrogant for someone who almost bled out in front of a stranger's door." For a moment, silence. Their eyes locked. The air between them thickened, sharp but charged, like the pause before lightning. Then Jinwoo's lips curved slightly. "You're either very brave," he murmured, "or very stupid." "Maybe both," she replied, her voice trembling but steady. He smiled faintly, and for the first time it wasn't cold. It was human. "Get some sleep, Jolene. You'll need it." She crossed her arms. "I'm not staying here." "Yes, you are." He turned to leave, but she called out, "You can't just decide things for me." He stopped at the door, glancing back. "I can when the alternative is your death." And then he was gone, the sound of the door clicking shut echoing in the silence. Jolene exhaled slowly and sat down on the couch, running her hands over her face. What did I just get myself into? Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then picked it up. A voice spoke in accented English. "Miss Jolene, you saved the devil last night." Her blood went cold. "Who is this?" "Stay away from him," the voice warned. "Because next time, no one will save you." The line went dead. Jolene stared at the phone, heart pounding. She didn't sleep that night. Every sound, every creak of the penthouse made her flinch. And yet, somewhere between the fear and confusion, her mind kept returning to him. The way he said her name, the look in his eyes when he said she shouldn't have saved him. Maybe he was right. Maybe she had saved the wrong man. But deep down, Jolene couldn't shake one feeling. That fate wasn't done with them yet. Jolene didn't realize she had fallen asleep until the sound of distant thunder woke her. But it wasn't thunder. It was something heavier, deeper. The kind of sound that shakes walls and tightens throats. Gunfire. She sat up instantly, her pulse spiking. The penthouse lights were dim, the glass windows casting long shadows across the room. Somewhere below, car alarms screamed. "Jinwoo," she whispered. No answer. She slipped off the couch and crept toward the balcony, her heart pounding with every step. When she looked down, her breath caught. The entire street below was crawling with men. Cars lined up bumper to bumper. Black coats, silver guns glinting under the night lights. They weren't just a few, there were dozens, no, hundreds of them. 200, maybe more. They moved like an army. Her mind went blank. She remembered the note on her door. "Stay inside. They're coming for you." Now she understood. A shadow moved behind her. She spun around, ready to scream, but it was Jinwoo. He was dressed in all black again, a fitted tactical coat, gloves, and a handgun at his side. His face was calm, too calm, like this chaos was something he had trained for all his life. "They found us," he said simply. Jolene's voice shook. "How? You said this place was safe." "It was." He checked the magazine in his gun and snapped it shut. "Someone inside my ranks talked." She blinked. "You mean you were betrayed?" "Wouldn't be the first time." He walked past her toward the elevator, but she grabbed his arm. "Wait, you're just going down there? You'll get killed." He looked at her hand on his sleeve, then at her. "Not if I kill them first." "Are you listening to yourself?" she said, stepping in front of him. "There are hundreds of them down there." He smiled faintly, that same dangerous, maddeningly calm smile. "Then it's an even fight." Jolene couldn't breathe. "You're insane. I've been called worse." When the elevator doors opened, he stepped inside, but she didn't move. Her instincts screamed at her to stay, to hide, to survive. But her heart wouldn't let him go alone. "Jean Woo!" she shouted. He turned slightly, one brow raised. She swallowed hard. "If you die, I'll never forgive myself." His expression softened, just for a second. "Then don't. Stay alive instead." The doors closed, leaving her alone with the sound of her racing heartbeat. The next 10 minutes were the longest of Jolene's life. Through the balcony glass, she could see flashes of light, hear the echo of gunshots, the roar of engines, the chaos of men shouting commands. The air smelled like metal and smoke. She pressed her palms against the glass, whispering, "Please, please be okay." Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Jolene," a deep voice said in English, not Jinwoo's. "We have eyes on you." Her blood ran cold. "Who is this?" "You don't know me, but we know who you are. You're the foreign girl he's protecting." "I'm not," she began, but the voice cut her off. "Don't lie. We've seen you with him. He's ruined everything for us because of you. So here's the deal. Step outside, hand yourself over, and maybe we'll let you live." Her knees went weak. "You're lying." "Try us," the man said, his tone calm and chilling. "You have 3 minutes." The line went dead. She dropped the phone, trembling. 3 minutes, she whispered. Her mind raced. Run? Hide? Call the police? No, she couldn't involve them. She'd seen enough of Jinwoo's world to know it didn't mix with law or mercy. Then she remembered something. The gun Jinwoo had left on the table earlier, beside his jacket. She grabbed it with both hands, her fingers shaking. It was heavier than she imagined, cold and solid. When the elevator suddenly dinged behind her, she spun around, aiming at the door. The doors slid open, and Jinwoo stumbled out, his lip bleeding, his coat torn. She gasped. "Oh my God!" He raised a hand. "Don't shoot, bestie." She blinked. "What?" "Your hands are shaking. You'll shoot me before anyone else," he said, his tone still teasing even with blood running down his face. "Are you seriously joking right now?" She snapped, her voice cracking. "You're bleeding." He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "Not mine." She blinked. "What?" He smirked faintly. "Their blood. Not mine." Jolene's stomach twisted. She didn't know whether to be relieved or terrified. What happened down there? He grabbed a towel from the bar and wiped his hands casually, like he'd just finished washing dishes. "They sent their best. It wasn't enough." "You killed them?" He met her gaze. "Would you rather they killed you?" She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her heart thudded painfully. There was something in his eyes. Not pride, not even anger, just emptiness. Rain kept falling long after the gunfire stopped. The city lights blurred behind a curtain of water, and the smell of metal still clung to the air. Jolene's fingers were still laced with Jinwoo's when she finally whispered, "Is it over?" Jinwoo didn't answer. His eyes tracked every shadow that moved beyond the window. His right hand never left the pistol resting on his thigh. Minutes passed. The thunder of engines below quieted, replaced by sirens somewhere far away. Jolene could feel the tremor in his hand through their joined fingers. "You're shaking," she said softly. "So are you." He let go first, stood, and walked to the counter where empty bullet casings lay beside a half-spilled glass of whiskey. The overhead light flickered. They'll come again. Tonight, tomorrow, doesn't matter. Baek Hyun doesn't stop. Then we leave, Jolene said quickly. Right now. Jin-woo turned, one brow raised. Leave where? Every camera in this district has my face on file. Then somewhere with no cameras, she shot back. You saved me down there, Jin-woo. Don't make it pointless by waiting to die. Something in her tone broke through the steel around his expression. He studied her for a moment, then nodded once. Pack only what you can carry. The elevator was dead, shot out during the fight, so they took the stairwell, their footsteps echoing between concrete walls. The building was half dark. Emergency lights blinked a dull red. Each floor smelled of gunpowder and smoke. On the 22nd landing, Jolene hesitated. Wait, do you hear that? Jin-woo froze. Beneath the hum of rain came another sound. A faint beeping. His eyes widened. Get down. The explosion hit like a hammer. The shockwave threw them both against the wall. Heat rolled through the stairwell. Alarms screamed. Dust rained from the ceiling. Jolene's ears rang as Jin-woo pulled her up, half dragging her toward the basement exit. Bombs? She gasped. They're leveling the place, he shouted. Move! They burst out into the alley just as another blast tore through the penthouse floors above them. Glass rained down like shards of ice. Flames licked the skyline where they had been sitting minutes earlier. Jolene stumbled, coughing through smoke. You're home. Forget it, Jin-woo said, grabbing her hand. We're ghosts now. Kang's black SUV screeched around the corner, headlights cutting through the ash-filled air. Boss, he yelled. Inside. They dove in. The doors slammed. The car tore through the wet streets. In the rearview mirror, the tower collapsed inward, one floor folding into another until the night swallowed it whole. Jolene pressed a trembling hand to the window. They destroyed everything. Jin-woo looked back only once. Not everything. Hours later, the city lights disappeared behind mountain fog. Snow began to fall soft, almost gentle after the chaos. The SUV turned down a narrow forest road and stopped before a small cabin hidden between pine trees. This is it, Kang said. No signals, no power lines. No one will find us here. Jin-woo nodded. You stay on guard. No lights till sunrise. He stepped out first, steadying Jolene as she followed. The cold bit through her thin sweater. Her breath came out in shaky clouds. Inside, the safe house smelled of cedar and dust. Jin-woo lit a small oil lamp, its golden glow pooling over old furniture. He guided Jolene to a couch and knelt to unlace his boots. When he stood again, she noticed the blood seeping through his sleeve. You're hurt, she whispered. It's nothing. Show me. He hesitated, then peeled the fabric back. A shallow cut trailed across his forearm. Jolene fetched a rag from a cabinet and pressed it against the wound. You say nothing too easily. He gave a faint, crooked smile. And you worry too much for someone who claims she wants out. I never said I wanted out, she murmured. I just didn't sign up for bombs. He laughed quietly, the sound rough and low. Welcome to my Christmas season. That earned a glare, but she couldn't help a tired smile. They sat in silence for a while, the kind of silence that grows after too much noise. The fire crackled softly in the stove. The storm outside faded to a whisper. Finally she asked, Who planted it? Baek Hyun, he said without hesitation. He's cutting off my last territories. The penthouse was bait. He wanted me inside when it went down. And me, he met her eyes. Collateral. The word landed heavy between them. Jolene rose, pacing near the window. So I'm just collateral in your war? Jin-woo leaned back, exhaustion shadowing his face. You were never supposed to be part of this. Well, I am now. She crossed her arms, staring at him. You could have told me. I would have. What? Run? Scream? Leave? He shook his head. The moment you pulled me out of that snow, you were already marked. Baek Hyun's men watch everything. Her anger deflated into a quiet ache. Then what do we do? He stood slowly, walked to the window beside her. We wait. We heal. Then I finish it. She turned to him. Finish it how? He didn't answer. Outside, the snow deepened, erasing their footprints from the path. Later, when Kong took the night watch outside, Jolene found Jinwoo sitting on the floor near the fire, staring at the flames. His face looked softer in the orange light, almost peaceful. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Too quiet," he said. "Silence makes a man remember things." She sat beside him, wrapping the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "You mean things you wish you could forget?" He nodded. "People I couldn't save. Things I destroyed trying to keep them safe." Jolene hesitated, then said, "You saved me. For now," he murmured. "But people close to me don't stay alive long." She reached out and covered his hand with hers. "Then maybe I'll be the first." For the first time that night, his gaze softened. "You're impossible, you know that? I've heard worse." He chuckled quietly, and for a heartbeat the world outside didn't matter. No gunfire, no syndicates, just warmth and two exhausted souls who shouldn't have found each other. When he finally drifted into uneasy sleep, Jolene stayed awake, watching the fire fade to embers. She could still see the glow of the city far beyond the forest, faint and distant, like another lifetime. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, only that for tonight, they were alive. And somewhere out there, the man named Baekhyun was already plotting his next move. The snow outside fell in silence. Not the peaceful kind. This was heavy, suffocating silence, the kind that made Jolene's heartbeat sound too loud in her own ears. The safe house sat deep within the forest, swallowed by pine trees whose branches sagged under thick layers of white. Inside, the fire had burned low. The last sparks glowed weakly, casting small red circles across the wooden walls. Jolene wrapped her arms around her knees and watched Jinwoo sleep. He looked calmer now, his usual guarded face softened by exhaustion. But even in rest, one hand stayed near his gun. It was past midnight. Kong had gone to patrol the perimeter hours ago, but he hadn't come back. Jolene's stomach twisted. She stood slowly, trying not to wake Jinwoo, and moved toward the door. The moment her hand touched the handle, a faint crunch echoed outside, like a boot pressing down on snow. Her breath caught. She whispered, "Kong!" No answer. Then another crunch. Jolene turned sharply and shook Jinwoo's shoulder. "Hey, someone's out there." He woke instantly, eyes snapping open, hand on his gun. "What did you hear?" "Footsteps. I think someone's watching." Jinwoo moved silently toward the window, pulling the curtain back just an inch. Snow shimmered faintly under the moonlight. Between the trees, something shifted, a dark shape moving slowly through the woods. Jinwoo's voice was low. "Get back from the window." She obeyed, her pulse thundering. He crouched beside the fire, grabbed his black jacket, and checked the magazine in his pistol. Then he glanced back at her. "If I say hide, you hide. No talking. No questions." "Jinwoo, what if it's Kong?" If it was Kong, he would have given the signal twice. He was already halfway to the door when a loud bang hit the side of the cabin, with splintering, glass rattling. Jolene screamed and ducked as another hit followed, harder this time. "Down!" Jinwoo shouted, pulling her to the floor as bullets tore through the window. The room filled with flying shards and smoke. The old lamp crashed and shattered, plunging everything into semi-darkness. Jinwoo crawled toward the back room, dragging Jolene by the wrist. "Go!" They reached a narrow hallway lined with old tools. Jolene's chest burned. She couldn't tell if it was fear or the smoke. "Who are they?" she gasped. "Baekhyun's scouts," Jinwoo hissed. They tracked the SUV's tires. He kicked open a small trapdoor leading to a root cellar below the cabin. "Get inside. I'm not leaving you up here. Now, Jolene." The authority in his voice made her obey. She slid down into the darkness just as another explosion shattered the front door. The cellar smelled of soil and rust. Through the floorboards above, she heard muffled shouting, gunfire, and then silence. Minutes stretched like hours. Her hands trembled around the flashlight she'd found on a crate. What if he was gone? What if they'd taken him? Before panic could swallow her, the trapdoor creaked open. A hand reached down. "It's me," Jinwoo's voice whispered. "Come up." Jolene scrambled out, heart hammering. The cabin was wrecked, Walls torn, furniture scattered. Blood stained the floor near the doorway. "Where's Kong?" she whispered. Jin was jaw clenched. "They got him." The words hit her like a blow. "No." He wiped blood from his cheek. "We need to move before sunrise. They'll send more." "But you're bleeding again." "I've had worse." Jolene grabbed his arm. "You can't keep saying that." He turned to her, eyes dark. "And you can't keep caring like that, Jolene. It'll get you killed." The room went quiet except for the whisper of the wind through broken glass. "I didn't ask to care," she said softly. "It just happened." He looked away first, holstering his gun. "Then do me a favor. Don't die because of me." By dawn, they were deep in the woods, following a narrow trail that wound between thick trees. Jolene's legs ached, and the snow soaked through her boots. "Where are we even going?" she asked, trying to keep up. "There's an old hunter's cabin a few miles north," Jinwoo said. "Baekhyun's men won't expect us to move on foot. And if they find it, then we keep moving." Jolene sighed, muttering, "You make running for your life sound like a hobby." He almost smiled. "You make complaining sound like art." She glared. "You're lucky I saved your life. And you're lucky I haven't dragged you back to Seoul yet." Despite everything, the danger, the exhaustion, they both laughed softly, the sound echoing between the trees. It was brief, fragile, but real. As they walked, the woods grew quieter. The snowfall had stopped, leaving the world frozen in stillness. But Jolene couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was still watching. She caught Jinwoo's arm. "We're not alone." He froze. His eyes scanned the trees. "Where?" Behind that ridge, something moved. He motioned for her to stay down and crept forward, steps silent. Seconds later, he raised his gun toward the shadows. A voice called out softly, "Boss, don't shoot." Jolene exhaled sharply. A man stepped into view, young, bloodied, limping. It was Kong. "Holy Kong!" she cried, running toward him. He looked half dead, but alive. "They thought I was down," he said, voice weak. "I followed them back here. One of them dropped this." He handed Jinwoo a small silver pendant marked with a dragon emblem. Jinwoo's expression darkened. Baekhyun's new insignia. "He's merging with the Beijing branch." "What does that mean?" Jolene asked. "It means this isn't just revenge anymore," Jinwoo said coldly. "It's war." They reached the second cabin by noon, a smaller, hidden place near a frozen stream. Kong collapsed near the fire while Jolene boiled water and tore old sheets into bandages. "You should rest too," Jinwoo told her quietly. She shook her head. "I'm fine." "No, you're not." She looked up at him. "Why do you care?" His silence lingered too long. Finally, he said, "Because you remind me what it's like to have something to lose." The words hit deeper than she expected. For a second, they just stared at each other, snowlight reflecting off his eyes. Then Kong coughed roughly from the corner. "If you two are done being poetic, I think someone's still out there." Jolene frowned. "You mean more men?" Kong nodded weakly. "One. Watching from the tree line since we got here." Jinwoo's gaze hardened. He reached for his gun again. "Then the Watcher followed us." "Who's the Watcher?" Jolene asked, fear creeping back into her voice. "The one Baekhyun sends before every massacre," Jinwoo said grimly. "He doesn't miss twice." Outside, snow began to fall again, slow and silent, burying the last of their footprints as the forest seemed to close in. And somewhere among those trees, a figure moved closer, watching, waiting.
Hello besties, thank you so much for watching episode 1. Kindly stay tuned for episode 2.